Hey, and hello. Welcome to VGA Fireside. I am your host, Chaz Evans, coming to you live from an unfinished basement. It is cold down here in this basement, and that is why we have decided to warm it up with a fireside chat about video games. We are going to start off with quite a lot of thank yous. I know the show hasn't even begun yet, but I believe that the path towards a life well lived is the path of gratitude. So we're going to start off with some thank yous, and then eventually we will bring our special guest, TJ Hughes, online. So first of all, thank you to the important people that made this show possible. We've got producer and director of operations for VGA, Bryce Poles. Thank you very much, Bryce. Bryce, would you say hello to the wonderful people watching at home? Too much to ask? Hey, there's producer Bryce. watching over us, making sure everything goes fine like a guardian angel. Thank you to designer and director of communications for VGA Gallery, Eleanor Schichtel. I want to thank the VGA staff and the VGA board and our wonderful partners who have helped us make sure that this show makes it to people who are interested in it, such as the Chicago Center for Art and Technology. A big thank you to Paul for your partnership in spreading the word, and a shout out to any Shy Cat students who are watching right now. Thank you for joining us. We want to say thank you to the Independent Game Designers Association Chicago chapter. Thank you very much to Ross for helping spread the word, and shout out to IGDA members who may be joining us right now. Glad to have you. Also, the Media Arts and Game Design module housed in the Department of Radio, TV, Film in the School of Communication at Northwestern University. Thanks to Ozge and Lori for helping spread the word, and welcome to you, the students of Northwestern who may be joining us. Great to have you as well. Our intro music that you are just enjoying is by Electric Mirrors. The fanfare that you'll hear later is by the Oldham Music Center Youth Brass Band. And if you know of an organization or group that would be interested in this kind of program or have any feedback on what you see today, please drop us a line at info@vgagallery.org. We would love to hear from you. So I think that's all of the credits that I wanted to start off with. And so it's very exciting to start the show by saying, Bryce, hit us with the opening animation. Yes. All right. With that fanfare, VGA Fireside has officially begun. Today's guest is TJ Hughes, aka Terrifying Jellyfish. TJ Hughes is a game designer and digital artist based in St. Louis, Missouri. Hughes works across different media and is currently working on Noor, a colorful video game about playing with food, which will be released on PlayStation 5, PC, and Mac. And in his own words here, Terrifying Jellyfish is bent on escaping the mediocre and mundane forever through the exorbitant use of color, playfulness, and aesthetics. Everyone at home, please help me welcome TJ Hughes to VGA Fireside.
Hello.
Hi, TJ.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. That intro was sick. I wasn't expecting that.
Terrific. Thank you for the immediate positive feedback. We're just getting started, but I will take it.
Whoever like motion designed that, like,
that's
keep
super
it up.
Super designer Eleanor Schichtel. Thank you very much, Eleanor. Shout out to Eleanor. So, TJ, how are you doing?
I am well. I'm trying to do too much at once, but we're getting through it. I have some great help, so very grateful for that.
Terrific. Yeah.
I'm also very homebound. It just started like snowing like crazy today, so I'm just like, finally we get some like aesthetic with the coldness. Like, I don't like cold without the like winter aesthetic. It's like, what's the point?
Yes, if it's not the beauty of snow, it's just that dirty half snow that's just melting away, and that doesn't feel very inspirational.
No one wants that. Yeah,
no, absolutely no one does.
That's not a winter wonderland. That's what I signed up for. That's what I should get.
Right. Yeah. Those who say that they enjoy snow never actually admit to that sort of other stage of snow living.
No one has ever appreciated that in my experience.
Indeed. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this little conversation on top of all the other things that I'm sure are keeping you very busy and keeping your head spinning.
Glad to do it.
We want to talk to you about your work and your game. That is what we're here to do. So I thought I'd just start out by asking you if there's anything else that you'd like to say to introduce yourself that I missed. And the biggest question that we want to start with is, how did you start getting involved with video game making?
Yes. I don't think there's much else to intro about me. Just yeah, from St. Louis, self-taught. Uh, yeah, that's about it. But as far as how I got started, it was a big matter of Googling things until I could say like, oh, I get that. like it started with an interest, I guess, like because from an early age I would say, oh, I want to grow up to be a game designer, but I was a kid, so I didn't think for like even a second what that takes.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, that's just what I want to do. And yeah, actually, it was one of two answers. It was either an inventor, which, like, what does that mean? That's so vague. Like, yeah, I just want to invent machines. Like, huh? Which I guess that would be more of an engineer, like, because I would see my dad poking around with like like gadgets and stuff like that all day. And so I guess by that I meant like, oh, I want to like mess around with breadboards and like hardware. But it's interesting that that's not exactly the direction I went. I was just like, oh yeah, game design.
Is it still somewhere in the background of your practice? Is breaking out the soldering iron and getting closer to the metal, as they say?
Not really, actually. I've only soldered one thing ever, and I don't think it worked. So I don't think that dream was very long lived.
Right. Fair enough. So that was in the background, but then you focused towards the screen, perhaps.
Yeah, and that was more from my interest in visual art, which was my mom kind of accidentally bestowed upon me. Like at no point was this intentional, but like so she's a traditional artist. She does like acrylic and watercolor and just like a bunch of other stuff too, like kind of anything she can get her hands on, she tries, and just bodies it absolutely. And so I don't know if it's that I spent more time with my mom, which like that could be it, but like I kind of lean towards her like visual art side. And my dad tried to explain like music to me because he was a jazz musician. And so he would try to like explain to me like music stuff and like would try to teach me, and it just wasn't sticking. I was just like, I don't what scales, what is all this? Like, how am I supposed to know when I'm playing C? Like the keys aren't labeled. There's just white and black keys. How do you know what that means? But it's funny that like later on in life, I'm starting to like get it. I'm starting to get into like music stuff, and so it's like I understand now what he was trying to tell me. But no, it's just really funny. But anyway, so yeah, from that interest, it kind of just sparked like a curiosity. And despite me not thinking that I could ever do it, like I remember having a specific thought of like, oh, there's like you need to be good at math to make games, right? Like I would try to picture, like imagine like me as an 11-year-old trying to imagine how a game is made. I like knew kind of what polygons were, like not like I never looked it up or anything, but I noticed when playing games like, oh, sometimes things are just flat or like they look really triangular-y.
Yeah.
And so I would just be like, okay, I guess it's composed of that. But like I thought that I didn't know that there were just interfaces for it. I thought you just had to like look through code all day, and like me knowing myself, I'm just like, oh, I have an awful attention span. I'll never, be able to do this stuff. But then later when I was 13, I was like procrastinating some homework or something, and I found this game called Paradise Paintball. Back when like Mac dashboards were a thing, it was like a little dashboard widget game. And it's just what everyone was playing to just like procrastinate. And so I clicked the little info icon and saw, oh, this is made in Unity. What's that? And so started looking that up. I was like, whoa, it's free to download. Like you can just get this. And so I downloaded that. This was back in like Unity 2.6. It was awful. But it was also great, but it was awful. And I just like started learning from I don't know, I guess the first thing I did was like I found this like PDF that was like how to make a FPS in Unity. I was like, oh, let's go. Like I'm gonna make Call of Duty but with zombies, and it's gonna be an MMO, and it's gonna have like Mirror's Edge parkour physics or I don't know, whatever like kid me was on at the time. I was just like, I'm gonna make that, even though this takes a team of like 1 million people. And so I didn't get anywhere close to that goal, but I did learn a lot. Is the takeaway? And so.
Yeah. So that's kind of describes a moment shared by others as well, right? Those who are compelled by video games, possibly from a very early age. The experience can be so intense that at first there might be no need to actually consider, oh, these are made by people, right? Just because the experience of just being in them is so intense. So basically, just by playing a game of matching logos to websites and downloading things, that's sort of where that moment happens for you, that like, oh, these are produced by people and I can be that person as well.
Yeah. And I just went into it from just pure interest and motivation. Like it would, like the concept of making a video game was just so cool to me. And like even being into like other art mediums, just games just appealed the most to me. It was always just like I always just liked the culture so much more, and like I was just more interested in the fact that it was so new, and I felt like not everything had been done yet, and like I thought I had great game ideas that I would run through in my head, and I'm just like, okay, I need to be able to make these one day. It's pretty much the culmination of every single one of my interests, because it's like, okay, I like art stuff, but I also kind of like it when it gets a little technical too, because like, oh, there's problems to solve, and so like that just really appealed to me. That's a nice
segue into my other question, because I know you are a multimedia and multidisciplinary practitioner. So while you're teaching yourself, researching things online as far as game engines and game making are concerned, what other media specifically were you working in and maybe still work in? And how do those other non-game kinds of media inform your game making practice?
Yeah. So as far as other mediums, like I try to branch out. I feel like I can never stick to one thing, just because there's so many ways to express yourself artistically, and also there's so much overlap in so many different fields. And whereas games being kind of where everything comes together, I feel like if you narrow your focus a bit, you can make something really cool in a different medium. So like I really like video. That's something that like I got this camera that you're actually seeing me through right now. I got, like, when I got this camera, like it really opened the world to me, because it's just like, okay, it's like portable quality. Like it's just like the images are really good. You get this like nice bokeh and like depth of field on all your photos. I'm just like, okay, wow, you can really like build a creative world off of just this one device. And so I've always just been interested in visuals in general. So like that kind of got me into like photography and video as well. And that more started when my dad gave me a digital camera a long time ago. And it was like the best thing, like, because I remember when he first mentioned it, I would like never stop bugging him about it. I'm just like, so that digital camera, like, you got it yet? Like, where is it at? Where's it at? Like, so, and that really just opened the world to me for, as far as like, just thinking about visuals even more, like, because I was already used to like pencil and paper. I would draw comic books with my brother all the time. Like nothing good. It was just like Sonic fan characters and stuff like that. Oh my gosh.
All part of the process.
It's all part of the process. We all come from somewhere. I come from Sonic OCs. I never uploaded them to DeviantArt or anything like that. Like I never showed people, but we would just make these comics for ourselves just to show each other, between me, my brother, and my cousin. Like we that's just all we'd spend days doing that.
So this outfit's not on DeviantArt, but is there still an archive, perhaps?
I have them in my room. I was I told everyone that I was going to do a live stream one day of just like going through it, because I just, no shame. That's going to be the no shame stream whenever I do that.
Yeah, well, we hope this is the no shame stream too.
So far, I don't have any.
Yeah, good. So there's photography, there's hand drawn illustration, and these are all ways to understand imagery that do inform the way you go about making games in your current form. Is that all fair to say?
Yeah. I've been branching out, but it all like comes back to games at the end of the day.
Yeah. And also, it seems like that you grow a perspective where just one piece of gear can, you don't need a whole, garage or a checkout cage full of gears. It's just like one camera can unlock quite a lot of activity for you, quite a lot of opportunities in just one little thing.
Yeah. I love looking at tech and seeing things that can kind of be like all in one things. Because like I feel like for the longest time you needed such a budget to get into anything basically.
Yeah.
But I love it when I can find something where it's just like, okay, no, this works. People just don't see this as the industry standard. And like the term industry standard really holds a lot of people back because they're like, oh, I can't do this. I don't have the proper gear. I don't have the right whatever. But it's like, oh, you can kind of use anything to do anything. Like kind of how bedroom pop artists are like getting big from recording songs on their iPhone, or like just like not even having a good mic, or like I guess the earliest example I can think of is just like, oh, remember like the Blair Witch Project, like how the whole thing was shot on like a bad cell phone video or whatever. It's just like everything is an artistic choice, and like everything's a paintbrush kind of.
Right.
It doesn't matter the quality as long as you just are acutely aware of like, okay, using this kind of gear will send this kind of message. So
yeah, that makes me sort of want to have a very brief sidebar about that term industry standard, what it actually means, and if we can find a number of creative affordances in all kinds of materials, what is this term really doing for us anymore?
Yeah, for real. And like, yeah, you're seeing it pop up in like industry, like every single industry. I feel like you're seeing people just get so big with just like not a lot of gear. And it's kind of making me realize like, oh yeah, they're never really, or at least in the last decade or so, they're never really needed to be industry standards for things. It's all just about like your message and what you create.
Yeah, or maybe if someone identifies a tool as the industry standard, that's a reason to use something different strategically, right?
Strategically, yeah.
Your whatever you're working on will not conform to whatever that standard.
Yeah, and, right, and for the longest time, like even when I was learning game dev stuff, I would see people in forums, and sometimes in person too, just all the time, just say like, oh, don't use like Blender. Like Blender's my favorite program and is what has gotten me like, it's what has enabled me to make all the art that I make. But for the longest time, people were just like, no, it's not industry standard. You won't get far at all with that. And it's just like, okay, yeah, if you're trying to like, I guess if you're trying to be like AAA at this huge company, sure. But it's just like, if you want to make something dope, like you can just do that so easily. Like it's just right there. It's
right
free,
there.
it's open source. And like same with Unity before, like someone was just like, oh no, don't use Unity, build your own engine. I'm just like, what do you mean? I don't want to build engines. I want to make video games. If I build an engine, I'll be here for 10 years and I'll have like a rotating box. Like there's no point in me pursuing that.
Yes, it's an option out there, right, for the ambitious maker of games. But
yeah, if you're that smart, go for it. Like by all means, like.
But just one has to remember scope and the fact that if you're choosing that path, then well, you better have quite a lot more production schedule, shall we say, if you're going to start things by making your own engine. And so you have a free tool like Unity that can help you amongst other ones as well. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the software that you like to use to make a game, now's I think a good time to show us your work. Do you think you could give us a demo of Noor?
Absolutely. Let me fire it up. I gotta hit the screen share. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, 1 second. All right.
There we are.
All right, that's shown up for everyone.
Terrific.
Yeah. So it's I don't know why the popcorn is so low right there. But tell me if the audio works as well.
Oh, I'm hearing some pops. Producer Bryce, do you getting the audio to the people at home? Oh, there you are.
Hi, sorry. I don't think we are getting audio.
Oh, okay. We should. There's still plenty to visually feast on here. So tell us what we're looking at. We had a tile and a red void, and then popcorn kernels.
Popcorn kernels, yeah. So
everywhere. And then they begin popping.
Yeah.
Can you tell the people at home what are you doing to make these changes happen?
So Noor is a game just all about just playing with your food. It just presents you with different scenarios of food and kind of leaves you free to mess with it and just throw it around, make a mess. All the while an audio visual experience is happening, like things are like the audio's reacting to what you're doing. There's going to be like really high fidelity sound effects and just super satisfying animations. Just like everything is all trying to be satisfying and explore the aesthetics and like textures and gradients of food. And so there's no goals or objectives or anything. It kind of just leaves you free to explore food at your own pace,
Awesome.
however you want. So so right now I'm literally just like button mashing, and there's like just different foods you can play with. Here we got boba tea, and they're all just like kind of inspired by like my kind of just my experiences with food, and also just like what I found appealing just throughout the years. Like finally getting to travel, it exposed me to just like so many different foods, and often ones that I would just only see on like Instagram or different like food blogs. And yeah, I wish we had the music because you can see that it's like jumping. It's actually like everything's pulsing to the music right now.
Right.
Right now we're going through a very experimental phase in the game right now, where we're just like introducing a bunch of like different concepts. So that a lot is probably going to change between this and the final version.
Yeah. So I want to keep this going. If you would just keep playing as much as you are willing to, because all of these scenarios are naturally stunning, and we want to keep them rolling for the audience. But what's exciting is we have some questions from the audience. So
yeah, totally. Let me reshare my screen.
Reshare your screen, see if we can get the sound back.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's not too much to ask, you can play the game while answering questions.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. This is the sort of high level challenge that I didn't say you were in for.
Let's go.
So here's some questions for the audience. Okay, we got the music. Great. So first of all, how do you feel about exhibiting video games in museums? That's the first question.
I am all for it. I think they belong. I've luckily gotten to show this game in a couple like exhibits and at least one museum. I know it's up for a long-term installation at the Computer Science Museum in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And so it's up there. You can play the game on. I believe they have a launch pad for it. They either have a MIDI fighter or a launch pad. And so you can play the alternative controller experience, even though it's coming to PlayStation 5. There's you can play it on that as well. And so, yeah, I just believe games are an art form like anything else. Like, think about just everything that goes into a game, just visually, conceptually, just like there's just so many elements that goes into it. And so it's just like, why would it belong in a museum, and I feel the only reason they're not in museums is because just like the kind of culture and like thought behind games. Like, everyone thinks of a certain thing when they hear video game, and so I feel like it's mostly just the aesthetic and like mostly what people feel about games, like
Hello.
in the media, is kind of what why we don't see that more often.
Well, I'm glad that you feel positively towards seeing your work in a gallery context, as VGA has had the privilege of showing prints of yours in that kind of context. And it's good to know that it's happening worldwide and other places as well. Another question from the audience is, what about VR version of Noor?
We want to do that so bad. There's so many people. I feel like the top two requests I get are VR version and Nintendo Switch port. Those are the two things that everyone seems to want. All I can really say is I hear you and I feel you. Trying my best.
Are you saying porting it for all these different platforms isn't a ton of extra work on top of all the work that already goes into making a video game?
There's there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. But just know that I hear you and I'm right there with you. I want it as badly as y'all do.
Terrific. Another question is just the subject matter itself. Audience is curious why you would base the game around food.
Yeah, it was an accident. This wasn't even meant to be a game at first. In the first version, so like this came into existence because I was literally just like trying to test my ability to make shaders, because I had just downloaded this plugin called Shader Forge, and I was just like, that was my introduction to shaders. It's a visual node-based shader editor. And it was great because I was just like, oh wait, wow, you can do a lot with this. Like, you have so much more control visually over what you're doing. And so I wanted to just make something to kind of exercise that. And I had been following a lot of like food blogs. I had just gotten an Instagram. And so I was just seeing all this like food content. And also like just having seen like a bunch of Ghibli films and just like seeing the way anime portrays food in this super high fidelity way where they really care about how it's rendered. I was just like, okay, I wonder if games can give food that same kind of love. And so I just started making some food art just to see if I can make it look good. Uploaded it to Twitter. Everyone was like really into it. Yeah. And my friend Tyler asked me to show whatever it was that I was working on at an event of his, and I was just like, okay, it's like not interactive, but like I'll see what I can do. And so I just hooked it up to keyboard controls. I just made food drop down from the top of the screen, and that was it. And people just like kind of loved it. Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, I wonder if we can expand upon this. And so it just kept building and building, and I kept just seeing the response grow and grow. And yeah, it was kind of something where it just like came, it just like invented itself almost.
Yeah, it was at first kind of a placeholder so you'd experiment with shaders, and then it sort of picked up momentum from there. So, but now it is very much a subject, right? It is the focus of this game. So now that it's no longer just a stand-in idea, but it is the center of this game experience, has it developed your relationship with food? Has it deepened it, or maybe changed your visual relationship with food?
I know so many terms that I did not know before because of this game. Like, oh yeah, sous vide, like
terms of the day cuisine, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like quenelle. I don't know, what's some other like random. I don't know. I feel like it's just really upped my cooking game as well. Like I just know of so many more foods and like just cultural things surrounding food as well because of this. Like I learned that it's taboo to like leave your chopsticks in a bowl of rice. Like that's because it's just like that's what you do during like funerals. You know, you leave 2 chopsticks in a it's like steaming bowl of rice as like an offering. And so if you just do that, like that's that's taboo. And so there's just like so many specific little things that I've learned just throughout making this game. I'm just like, never thought about that, like never considered that. And I really just see how deep the world goes. And like, I can't act like I'm an expert or anything, but just like I've learned so much.
Perhaps in progress to becoming an expert because you focused on these different food topics so much. And I'm sure when you're making any game, you're looking at them constantly and for a very long amount of time, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying that it sort of brings more information to you about the sort of non-flavor parts of food, right? Like cultural conventions and culinary techniques. These are the sort of things that you've picked up along the way.
Yeah, culinary techniques, and also just kind of what food means to people. Because I'll find that like sometimes while demoing the game or just talking about it and just at an event or something like that, people will just like tell me their food stories. And that's something that I think is super cool. Like, I'm just like, wow, this like piece of art that I just randomly made, it can bring back memories like that. And that's just really cool to me because they'll start like sharing like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, like I would used to, I don't know, stand up the broccoli and pretend that they're trees or like flick the peas into the like pool of gravy in the mashed potatoes. Like, like just so many random little things. And I think it's just beautiful that this project can just bring that out of people and get them talking about that again.
Well, then I want to address directly any food studies scholars or researchers who are watching us today or perhaps watching the episode in the future. Remember, this is more than a video game. It is a combine, a compilation of cultural relationships to food distilled into an interactive experience. So remember that when you're thinking about your next food studies project. So yes, there was one viewer that was ready for the meat grinder action to occur. Is this the meat grinder result that all comes from above, or did I miss it? There's some that actually comes through the holes at the side.
There is a. Sorry, I'm trying to find the grind, but there we go. Yeah, nice. So you can actually grind up whatever you put inside of it.
Yeah.
Which some of it is not food, I must say.
Yeah. But this is the video game equivalent of Chekhov's gun, as they say. If you put a gun in the first act, it needs to go off in the second act. If you put a meat grinder in a video game, it needs to squeeze out something that's tubular.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yeah, a lot of making this game is just satisfying people's like expectations, but also subverting them at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's something I found really quickly from playtesting this game is just like there's a set of reactions that people expect just when they see the food. They're like, and that's how I got a lot of the ideas for the design is they'll see a food and they're like, oh, it should do this, or like, oh, it'd be cool if it did this. And I'm just like, you mind if I actually use that?
Yeah.
And it's just one of those games that it lends really well to that sort of design of just like, I don't know, almost like crowdsource ideas.
Mm-hmm. What's a prime example of that where you set up a tableau, you think the audience thinks, oh, it's definitely going to do this, and it goes in a totally different direction?
Yeah.
Is the toaster scene an example of this, perhaps? I mean, I see toasters. I expect things to pop out of them. Am I going to be satisfied in that?
Let's find out.
Let's find out. All right.
There it is.
Well, I didn't know which toasters. Right?
Yeah. Kind of a surprise.
Patient. And toast. Here's another question from the audience. just about music. What music do you listen to while working on the game?
Oh my gosh, so much stuff. Yeah, I have a Spotify. I feel like I should link to my like profile or something like that. But
It'll all be on the video once it gets stored through our various channels. So let us know if there's any follow-up material. It will be attached.
Yeah, but I listen to a lot of. Well, it's called hyperpop now, but before that term was kind of coined, I would just say, oh, my friends on SoundCloud, like, and so I just a lot of obscure SoundCloud music, which is now has the label hyperpop. A lot of just my friends' stuff, a lot. Yeah, just experimental electronic. I do listen to a bit of ambient when I really need to, if I either need to sleep or really get into the zone. I have this ambient playlist where I put on artists like I believe Tim Hecker and like Anna Roxanne, and it's just a bunch of really niche stuff. There's like 10 Tricks Point Never in there. There's Aphex Twin also fits that category. And so yeah, just like weird electronic stuff is mostly my taste. And I think my favorite artist is Igloo Ghost, who is definitely on the side of like zany, experimental, like really high energy type of music, and like that's what I turn that on all the time. And like stuff that's really dancey, even though I'm not dancing, I'm definitely like just like creating art. It just like gets the brain connections going, To
get a little drill down a little more specifically, would you say that high energy dance music is more productive of modeling and animating energy, or coding energy, or all of the above?
I would say it's good for coding, because then it like keeps me awake, staring at text and stuff. It can be pretty tiring. And also modeling too. Yeah, modeling like just whatever can get you in the zone, and just like a really fast rhythm can really just like get you in that sort of trance. So yeah. I think it's really good for that.
Well, a question about the game that I absolutely wanted to get into while I have you on the line is about open-ended play, and the fact that the game, does not conform to a convention of explicit win or loss states. And it's one of the things that it seems it's a part of a whole movement of games making with that proposal, relaxing that as a requirement. And of course, we've had games with a long history of games that excuse themselves from needing to do that. But there seems to be a lot of new ways to include that style of game making. So let's say in the last 5 to 10 years. So I don't know. I just wanted to ask you about that free-form play and requiring the player to have some self-determined goals. What do you think the effect of that is on a project, and what does it open up for you as the creator of that project?
Yeah, it's a really interesting proposition of like one of the biggest challenges I've had in making this game is just like, oh, there's not a lot of precedent, like there's not a lot to copy off of, and so it's just like it's kind of interesting carving a whole different way in terms of like your game's formatting and presentation, because it's just like if I was making like a traditional game, I could just be like, okay, yeah, maybe there's like 15 levels and an end boss, or like I could be like, maybe it's open world, and just like there's a million different examples of that. But when you're faced with a game where there's just like no objectives or anything like that, it's like, okay, how do I structure this? Like, how do I present it to a player? If there's no progression, do I just show them everything at once and they can just go through it and have their own experience? Or there's just like so many answers, and I think it's really just up to your design. Like you just have to really think about it for a long time. You just gotta sit down and be like, okay, what are my goals here? and like yeah, what do I want the player to get out of this, and like what do I think people will do? So you got to extensively play test it, just like a normal game, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just like only few games out there that have taken a similar path. Like I think of a big influence was Electroplankton for the Nintendo DS, because it's just like, okay, these are literally just like little synthesizers on the DS with like really fun visuals to it. And it's just like, how do you present that? And how they do it is they just have a menu. Like there's just a menu. It's just like, which Electroplankton would you like to play with? Oh, I want to play with the Hanon bow or whatever. And so yeah, you just do that, and it doesn't tell you to do anything. There's no like, yeah, it really doesn't hold your hand through the entire experience. It's just like, here it is, like discover the little quirks. And I don't know if that appeals to everyone, but I feel like that game was super underrated, because like I would just discover little things. I would be like, oh wait, if you press like left, right, up, and down on the like D-pad, different things happen. Like it goes to different like musical presets. Like this is really cool. And so I once spent an entire like plane ride just playing with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just the coolest thing. And
it's an amazing title. And although underappreciated in one perspective, legendary for I think many people. Although it's not it didn't exactly spin out into a 10-part franchise or anything.
Yeah.
But Toshio, I think still got plenty of credit. And even though there is, like you said, no hand holding and no sort of adjudicating force saying you must do X, Y, and Z, and this is the goal. Still such an abundant generosity of things to do, right?
Yeah.
And I think that really, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that really seems to be a shared value here in Noor, right? Like a surplus of visual results to make sure that the player feels like, don't worry, you're being rewarded for your participation. There's plenty to do here.
Yeah, and kind of how we've been designing it is we want to let the player, like we want to acknowledge when the player finds something interesting and like celebrate that moment, but we're not trying to be like, okay, you have to do this. Like we're trying to just like encourage the open-ended experience, but also celebrate those little discoveries at the same time. And in that comes like just the challenge of making something, not hold your hand, but also be accessible at the same time. Like that's another like really difficult challenge, because like Noor as a concept is really accessible. Like everyone has a memory of food. Like I found that was something that was really easy to sell about the game, was just, oh yeah, like this reminds me of blank. Like it just lets people make so many different connections with their own experiences of food. And so it's really accessible in that regard. And so with that, I want to make the entire game accessible as well. I mean, which that's what was really great about having it in a museum and have it be on this alternative controller, that you can just go up to it and press buttons and immediately you can kind of understand what's going on. So yeah, I like making experiences both like deep when you really look at them, but also just super simple and accessible. Like you could just enjoy the game just on the face meme value, just throwing food everywhere and just like having fun with that. But then you can also just like go a bit deeper into the emotional side of it and share your food experiences. So yeah, I'm trying to make something that kind of hits both of those sort of areas.
There's a point of access in that there's not some rarefied skill set you have to learn in order to grab the controller, but also this is a very strategic idea. It's like, so choose a topic that you can't really exclude yourself from. Like absolutely everyone has to have some relationship to this topic. It's also like making a game about breathing or sleeping, right? It's like everyone does it. So therefore you're included, in this topic.
Yeah. There's a sweet spot when it comes to accessibility in games, like because think of a game like Dark Souls, where it's just like, oh, some people can't even get past the first level because like the game literacy required is just so high. But then you have the other end of the spectrum where it's just like, when you think of accessible games on the Wii, you think of like, oh, exercise games, or like games that your grandma plays, or like I don't know how sometimes they have the there's a whole thing about like having Nintendo Wii's in like nursing homes or whatever. It's just like okay, like when we say accessible, we don't mean like family games. We don't mean like Bejeweled or like Candy Crush or anything like that. It's just like that. Like those games are really accessible, and I'm really glad they exist. But it's just like, where's the like deep artistic experiences that are also accessible? You know, the ones that get you thinking, but also you don't have to like be I don't know, you don't have to like be super into something, like deep into something to get it or know about it.
Yeah, so you don't have to sort of join some kind of citizenry in order to be a part of the experience or the conversation around it. And truly these questions of access are so critical and mean a lot and mean different things in all these different contexts. Noor is excelling in making sure that there is that cultural consideration of food, and making sure that there is not a particularly steep bar to entry in order to participate.
Yeah.
So I have plenty more questions to ask you, but I did want to, if anyone else who is watching right now has other questions, producer Bryce, feel free to feed those to me in the chat. I'm happy to ask them. Sometimes finding out what other people's questions are seems more exciting than the ones that I have prepared. But I will actually quickly talk. We've been talking so much about Noor. This is just your current project, and is being made on the top of a body of work. Do you want to tell us anything about Fish and Smugglecraft and how they may have informed, how they got you to this point of making Noor?
Oh yeah, the games of my past.
Yes, the body of work.
Yes. Those games I feel like were just huge learning steps that really got me to where I am today. Like Fish is the first game I ever finished. Like it was the first game I ever like. It was the first like time I built a game in Unity, like from start to finish, and actually had like an executable to like run on people's computers. And I made the first version of that when I was 16, taking place in a game jam. So it was the Ludum Dare, which is just a 48-hour game jam that happens online. And the theme was evolution, so I had to make a game around the topic of evolution in 48 hours, like from scratch. And so I never thought it was something I could do. Like at the time I was just like, oh snap, like this is for people who like know what they're doing. But I just took a shot at it. I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to do this essay that I have to do for school. I'm just going to like spend this entire weekend doing this. And so I went and did that, and I was really proud of what I made. I was just like, okay, wow, this is like, I really like what I made here. I think this is really fun. I want to show people. And so I spent the next few years like polishing it up, and like integrating Steam, and like and anytime I look back at it I'm just like, oh wow, my code for this game was so awful. Like it's just really trash.
That's
But
such a common perspective, though. I feel like, this is, people make stuff and it needs to match an audience, even though it's not perfected. And by the time that you have by the time you have the time to reflect on the other things you would have changed, it has already met its audience, and you're already approaching a whole other bag of ideas. So maybe it's okay, right?
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. Like it's just like, work with what you have at the time. Like I don't think anyone should ever like hold their art back, or just like hold back what they're working on just because they feel like the code is bad, or like this applies to music too. Like, oh, I feel like the mastering is bad, so I'm not gonna show anyone or upload this song anywhere. Like I discovered, like I encountered that so much when it's just like, no, dude, just show people, they'll love it. Like, and two, like a lot of the things that you think are amazing, like I don't know, and our big successes, like the code base is held together by duct tape. Like I feel like any social media site you go on, like any huge program, like there's so many hacks just in coding in our everyday life. There's so many things that are just like honestly whack in terms of like how they were made, and just it's like not smart, but it's like, oh, it works well enough and it meets its audience and it's a good idea. And sometimes that's really enough to make an idea great. So
sometimes that kind of quality control is at work at the highest level of industry, shall we say. The biggest companies in the world are still just putting something together.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, truly. Truly. And so, yeah, that game just taught me so much, and I just wanted to know what it was like to finish a game.
Yeah.
And so that really gave me that experience. So when I was 19, that's when I put that out. And so I was I don't know, like I was proud of that. And like it sold quite a bit too, which surprised me. I put like no money into marketing this because I had no money. So I really didn't market it, but it sold like 7,000 copies or so, which is crazy for your first game, zero marketing. Like it costed like it was $1 game. Like it was like 99 cents, but it was still just like
that can help.
Yeah, it really taught me a lot, and like that was really cool. I was just like, whoa, I've made money from something that was like wholly mine, and that was just a huge moment.
Yeah, remember that those things that are you think of as experiments that are rough, they can still find their audience and support you, or you let those older experiments support your next work, right?
Yeah.
It's never a bad idea. Here's an interesting question from the audience as well, which is about playtesting. So what opportunities do you feel that playtesting present for your practice and artistic vision? I think it's a good question because a playtester is a very special thing. Right? Because it's an audience member, but it's also a collaborator in a way because they're telling you about work and giving you direct feedback. So I don't know. Yeah, how do you feel about that kind of relationship, and what do you get out of it?
Yeah, it's just so critical. Like it's just like we can't exist without playtesters because you can test something yourself all day, but then the second you give it to someone else, like that's when you realize you're just like, oh, I didn't think about every like way you can approach this this design. Like you'll see, like I don't know, user experience is huge, and I think just having different perspectives is just huge to seeing like what you're really communicating in your work. I'll shout out my friend Jason Lee, who also helped me a lot with a newer Kickstarter. But I remember with Smugglecraft, we were demoing that game. It's a hovercraft racing game that I made with Happy Badger Studio. It's a local company to St. Louis. They're great. They give me experience in working with the team and just really set me up for like getting into the industry. They're great. But in testing that game, my friend Jason like comes up to the booth and he finds a way to exploit the there's like a drift boost system where if you drift and then press gas again, you'll just get a free boost. But he found out how to exploit that and get infinite boosts. And so we're just like, oh, we didn't know you could do that. And so just finding like you need playtesters to find the skill ceiling in your game, because like people will do anything to like just find just little exploits in your stuff. And like of course when you're playing your own game, oftentimes you just want it to work, right? So you'll like almost subconsciously play it in a way to where nothing breaks. But meanwhile players, that's all they want to do. That's all they just want to break it. So you just need that perspective because you never know like where the flaws in your design are, and sometimes there are not flaws, because like actually what we did was we took that idea and we introduced it as like actually a high level like gameplay. So like we just refined it a bit. We're like, okay, maybe you can't get infinite boosts, but you can get a pretty good amount of boosts if you know how to like do the specific inputs quite right.
That was my next question, is like, when these things come up, how much do you want to just stick with it or refine it, maybe make it more boostable, or, you know, how do you make those judgment calls as to whether or not this is, as they say, a feature or a bug?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's such a line between bug and feature, and just like sometimes like games when they break are the most amazing moments, and that's something that like is specific to games. Like no other medium can quite reproduce that sort of thing, where it's just like, oh, this thing happened that's entirely unexpected. It's kind of beautiful, even if it breaks what the original creator intended. And it almost makes games seem to have a life of their own, and that like it can do things that the artist like never really intended that it do. And so, yeah, you can either lean really far into it or you can just completely nix it. It's kind of just up to you what you want to do with your game. And I really say like keep an open mind and consider those things because like you never know. It can really just make or break the design of your game if you just like listen and be like, oh, hey, maybe this thing that I previously understood to be bad, maybe I can like utilize this to make my design even better. So
so you think they're just supposed to have fun or play the game, but what they play and how they play it ends up completely changing your own conception of the game itself. So well, we were almost out of time, TJ.
Yeah, we're almost there.
I have so many other questions, but realize the next one I ask will have the weight of being the last question. So it has to be a good one to go out on. Here's something I'm interested in. So VGA operations are sort of hubbed out of Chicago, although we now are trying to broadcast far and wide, and you're based in St. Louis. And I'm very interested in local development scene, more so than say globalized video game distribution. So I wanted to know, in your opinion, do you think where you are from and sort of physical environment that you find yourself in that context, does this inform the way you make a game or approach making games?
I don't know how much it definitely has its in like subconscious like kind of influence on me, I guess, where it's just like coming from somewhere that's kind of a small city, like whenever I'm at a conference, like everyone's like, oh yeah, you're from LA, right? And I'm just like, no. I am from the Midwest, and
I don't need to be.
yeah, I don't need to be, but I'm just like here, and it's like it's a really good base to start out from. It's just like cheap to live here. You don't get the feeling of like being, I don't know, you don't get the stresses of being in a big city. And it's kind of great because then you can, I don't know, like you can really just kind of focus and relax. But I would say it's really interesting bringing this to this city, like bringing like now that the game has some intention. It's just an interesting thing to bring this sort of recognition here. But also at the same time, like I've not really discovered in my own city like until like this past year, I would say. But I was kind of discovered everywhere else before my city sort of recognized what I was doing here. Mm-hmm. And so it's just interesting too because I'm bringing the game to a lot of like underground art shows, like some DIY shows. Like the last place I showed the game like in the city, it wasn't like this like big museum or anything. It was my friend's like art party. I just put the game up on a TV and like folks were just like going around and playing it, just super zoned out. Like, whoa, like wait, you made this? Like what? And so I kind of like that about it. It's just it doesn't have to be this huge like industrial thing. It can just be like this, like, oh yeah, I made this,
Yeah, so you do see that place for your work meeting a sort of smaller and immediate community that does have some physical boundary.
Yeah, it's just really humbling. It's just like, oh yeah, it reminds me like this is for fun, this was a fun little project that I made.
It doesn't go directly from your house to GDC or whatever. Like there's a lot of context where it can be played in.
Exactly.
So I think that's an encouragement to keep growing everyone's local game making and the local game communities and scenes. Oh wow, it is 6 o'clock, TJ. I'm going to thank you probably multiple times, but first of all, thank you so much for taking the time, opening up your webcam and talking to me and answering all these questions. Before we're done, as any good talk show or property floating around on the internet needs to do, we must plug things.
We must plug.
Must plug. So, TJ, where can our viewers find you online and learn more about your stuff?
Go to food.game, best URL ever. If you want to just like look up more about Noor, find out where you can just like follow along. I believe I have multiple links there. Terrifyingjellyfish.com. That's where you can see all my art. And I'm on Instagram, Terrifying Jellyfish. I'm kind of just like ever. Oh, we have a little
quick on the typing, producer Bryce. Thank you.
Tight, thank you, because I hate saying my Twitter handle out loud because it's like it has an underscore in it, and like I can't get rid of it. So, but no, very much appreciate that. Yeah, food.game.
Cool. Plugs from my side of the screen. So this whole show, VGA Fireside, is brought to you by VGA Gallery. We are a not-for-profit art organization that hubs out of Chicago, and our mission is to support artists who make video games and related new media art. And we are trying to bring this show to you once a month going forward. So please go to the VGA website to sign up for the newsletter. Then also we have a monthly publication called VGA Zine. So that's written pieces and other fun stuff about video game art that comes to you every month. There's a way to get on our mailing list, of course, on that website. Bryce, do we have the Twitter info in the animated ticker for VGA? Okay, there's prints also. That's one way you can support this program, as well as the other things that VGA does, is that if you like games like Noor or other artists that are sort of in the VGA print collection, you can buy prints. And we'll send them to you directly.
They're very good quality prints.
Why, thank you. I'm glad you think so. How about subscribing to this Twitch channel? How about subscribing to our YouTube channel, where this is, I believe, also happening all at the same time? And our Twitter and all these fun internet activities that everyone loves to do so much. Join us on the internet as VGA Gallery. I would like to also reread our thank yous that some of you may have heard at the top, but it's so great to have so many partners making this thing. I want to thank everybody again. So thank you, producer and director of operations Bryce Poles, for juggling the show. Thank you, designer of all our beautiful graphics and our, shall we say, impactful opening animation, director of communications Eleanor Schichtel. Thank you to the VGA staff and the VGA board. Thank you, Chicago Center for Art and Technology. All your students, all Shy Cat students are here. So great to see you. Thank you, Paul, for working with us. Thanks to Ross for reaching out to IGDA members. Thank you, IGDA, for being here. Thank you, Media Arts and Game Design Module, Radio, TV, Film, or just Northwestern students at large, School of Comm students, Northwestern people, great to have you. And thanks to Osuke and Lori for helping us with communications there. Thanks to Electric Mirrors for the intro music. Thanks to the Oldham Music Center Youth Brass Band for the fanfare. And again, if you know of a group that this kind of show is of interest to, we'd like to reach out to them directly. Or if you just have feedback of any kind, we would very much like to hear it. So drop us a line at info@vgagallery.org. Any other plugs that I am missing, TJ or producer Bryce? Anything else? Then I want to also give another gigantic thank you to TJ Hughes for being our inaugural speaker on this program. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks. I really appreciate it. It's great to bust out the webcam and and do this. I need to stream more is what I'm realizing.
Yes, we are going to do more of these soon. So please, we're aiming for the sort of last Wednesday of each month. And so the final times and new speakers will be announced as soon as they're finalized. So please just keep your ears and eyes peeled. And with all of that, I want to say to each and every one of you, thank you for joining us. And from all of us at VGA Fireside, please stay warm. I was working on like a sign off
That's a good one. That's a good one because it's very cold over here. It's this apartment's so drafty. So I will try. Thank you.
Yeah. That's my first sign off, and I'm sure it makes it really feel confident if you immediately solicit feedback on your sign off after you say it.
It makes it all the better.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Terrific. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, TJ. We will see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Terrific.